start off
nice and
by
round.
taking the clay, we're going to wedge it. You put it in the palm of your hand, like that.
Round. All the cracks, you want to smooth them out.
Spiral
Goes out of there.
and that compresses your clay, moves it together, works it together. Gets the bubbles out of the way. Make it nice and round.
Okay, so put it in the palm. Once we do that, you're going to put the sphere, you're making a sphere, smooth out the cracks because clay has a memory. If there's cracks, they're likely to show up later. During some stage of clay while it's drying or being fired. Take your thumb, then you're going to push through so you have a nice, you can feel it on the palm of your hand, but you don't go through. Then my thumb's right here, I'm going to wrap around. I'm going to start pinching the clay.
Once we do that, you're going to put the sphere, you're making a sphere, smooth out the cracks.
And notice how I have my hand turned in and only one hand is in there. Once you start using two hands or more fingers, and if you start pushing your hand out, your bowl is going to turn into a plate. And you also want to make sure that you are pinching the clay so it's not too thin. A good way to practice is just kind of pinch your finger, kind of close your eyes, think about it, and then see how thick it is, and then feel in here, see how it feels. Think that it feels a little thinner than your finger. Depending on how thick your finger is, that's probably cool. Looking good.
Your bowl is going to turn into a plate, and you also want to make sure that
just leave it.
You are pinching the clay.
Piece of trash from my desk in there.
Too thin. A good way to practice is just kind of
going around.
Kind of close your eyes, think about it, and then see how thick it is, and then feel in here, see how it feels. Think that it feels a little thinner than your finger. Depending how thick your finger is, that's probably cool. Looking good.
Okay. So the next step, in throwing on the wheel, it's important to learn how to be able to feel how thick things are with your fingers.
Going around.
So that's important on the wheel training, and this is just building is also important. So now we're going to do another thing that's an important tool on the wheel, which is called collaring in. And so if it's on the wheel, the clay's spinning and you just push in, but since we're not working with a wheel, we're just going like this. And notice how it's not, I have my hands like this, so I'm not cupping it in here, it's like that. So they're little movements around like this.
Now we're going to do another thing that's an important tool on the wheel, which is called collaring in. So
just little compressions, little compression, little turn, little compression, little turn. What we're going to do is we're creating kind of a bottle. We're going to make it the hole, the size for this cork. It's going to be our cute little top for a little teapot.
So they're little movements around like this.
So just closing it in, and as you compress the clay, notice how it's staying wide out here, more rounded, and then I want to have a bottleneck. So I don't want to push down too much, but just enough so that the roundness of my hands go in here.
Closing it in, and as you compress the clay, notice how it is staying wide out here, more rounded. And then I want to have a bottleneck. So I don't want to push down too much, but just enough so that the roundness of my hands go in here.
close this in. And as it gets thick, you want to thin it out. Just go in and pinch. And just like before, smooth it out, and you can blend it in too, because with these pleats in here, these shrink the compression. Go around.
Close this in. And as it gets thick, you want to thin it out. Just go in and pinch.
Just like that.
And just like before, smooth it out, and you can blend it in too, because with these pleats in here, these shrink the compression.
Close that in. Okay, so what we're getting close to, because there's all these irregularities up here, the peaks, we're going to trim it. I'm going to tighten this a little bit more. I put my index finger in there, I get a needle tool, and then find the lowest spot. That looks pretty good. Press, and then just roll. I'm using the side of the needle. I'm not stabbing my finger. Using the side, okay? Use the side of the needle. Now, the cleanest way to do it would be to have it spinning and cut it with the tip of the needle, but that's not always the way it works. It would take a bit of time to get this centered on a wheel and make it so I could trim it properly. This is handmade, so I usually am a little more loose with those.
Side of the needle. Now, the cleanest way to
just
do
keep
it
closing that in,
spinning,
and then get this to be where you want it.
But that's not.
That looks fine. And clay, water-based clay, ceramic clay like this. This is a cone 5 clay. It is made of about 13% water. So as it dries and that water leaves, it's going to shrink about 13%. So if a cork is something that doesn't change its size, if it's already a static shape and isn't changing, then as this shrinks, it's going to break the clay because it's not shrinking with it. So when we're done, we're going to set that aside. But the purpose for this is to actually make something that works. And for this to work, since this is a cork, even though it's going to have a spout, it needs an air release vent. And so I like to just go right here, because I won't see it. It's kind of out of the way, just like that. And so then this is how, as long as it doesn't get clogged with glaze on the next stage, then that will allow the liquid to pour out smoothly. Okay, so just go like that. Then, now what we'll do is the spout. And to do that, normally I would have a piece of fabric with me. I don't, so I'm just going to squish it with my hands like this, and not do it on the table, on the desk, because it would end up sticking to the desk. It doesn't get clogged with the next stage, then that will allow the liquid to pour out smoothly. Okay, so like that. Okay, and so the shape that I like is, and this is a general just principle, I go, that one doesn't matter, I just do it anyway. Because it's going to get trimmed, and this is a tiny spout, but it's important you have a smaller top, a wider bottom. Looks like there's a hard piece of clay right there. And then thin that out even more, because that was pretty thick.
The shape that I like is,
then I'm going to take this, better if I clean that off with some water, but I'm not wrapping it tightly around. All I'm using that needle tool for is, see how there's that gap? Is a place to have a solid surface to blend together like this. Okay.
Then thin that out even more. That was pretty thick.
So blend that together, and then I'll pull
this
this out, and I like to flare this out a little bit so it fits onto the teapot a little bit better.
All I'm using that needle tool for is, see how there's that gap? It's a place to have a solid surface to blend together like this.
Okay. And then
there it is.
I need some water. So I'll just dip that or get that a little wet. I like to put the spout about right there, so I can see there that that's where that is. Then I'm going to poke some holes here, here, here. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to, since that's already a little wet, set that there. Then I'm going to blend that on, just like that.
I like to put the spout about right there, so I can see there that that's where that is.
Around.
Then I'm going to poke here, here, here. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to, since that's already a little wet, set that there.
And this protruding up like that looks kind of silly. So what I like to do and go just a little below and maybe even a little up. Trim a little spout. Clean that out. And then when it's dry, tidy that up. So I think, and I would clean this up a little bit later, but that is just so fun. So very beginning, only basic hand tool or hand building technique that we didn't cover, which would be very easy with a hand or a foot, but I don't really care to put those on this. Is a coil. So we have slab and pinch pot, and this is something that's usable. And if you're someone who actually cooks or does things in the kitchen, positive you could find a reason for this. You could use it for like your oil. Either way, if you wanted the oil, we could do a different one with one of those little trimming things, or the little spouts. We can do that later. Anyway, so here's the teapot. So good.
And if you're someone who actually cooks or does things in the kitchen, positive you could find a reason for this. You could use it for like your oil. Either way, if you wanted the oil, we could do a different one with one of those little trimming things. Little spouts. We could do that later. Anyway, so here's the teapot. So good.